All right, welcome back everybody to the deep dive. We're diving into something super relevant today, I think. Uh, we're tackling xenophobia in learning spaces, which sounds pretty academic, right? But stick with us because this goes way beyond classrooms.
Absolutely.
Think workplaces, think online communities,
Right.
even families, right?
Exactly.
Anywhere where people are trying to learn and grow together.
For sure, for sure.
And today, we're going to look at some research, some ideas on how to actually build those spaces where everyone feels like they belong, you know?
Yeah, and I think, sometimes when we hear xenophobia, we immediately think of like, maybe overt racism or prejudice against immigrants, right? But it's such a broader issue than that. And it can show up
It can be.
in really subtle ways.
Yeah.
You know?
And it can be really insidious, right? Because it's not always like, someone yelling slurs or something like that.
Yeah.
It can be these much more subtle things that kind of chip away at people's sense of
Absolutely.
belonging and their ability to learn.
For sure, for sure.
And I think one of the things that the source material really kind of gets at is this question of, like, how do we create inclusive classrooms? Like, that's where the quote is. Like, how do we create more inclusive classrooms that value diverse perspectives and educate against xenophobia? But like you said, it's not just...
Exactly. It's
not related to the classroom at all.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, thinking about that, like, what are some of the real world consequences?
Oh, well, I think... we could...
Why should we care about?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, we should care because, if we have a workplace, right? If we have a workplace where xenophobia is present, then that means that we're not getting the full
contribution of everyone on the team, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine you have somebody who's really brilliant, but because they have a different accent or because they come from a different culture, their ideas are not being paid attention to, or they're being kind of dismissed or marginalized.
People aren't even aware of it.
Exactly. And that's a loss for everyone.
Right, yeah.
Right. So that's one example.
It's a loss for the company.
Absolutely.
It's a loss for the individual. It's a loss for, like...
everyone involved.
Society, like, all of that stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, so it's this really kind of pervasive thing.
Yes.
That can have these consequences that are both big and small. And I think one of the things that the source material does a really good job of is kind of digging into the root causes, like the why of xenophobia.
Right.
Like, where does this stuff even come from?
Right. And I think one of the things that it highlights is simply a lack of exposure to different cultures. Right. I mean, it's... I think it's kind of natural to be a little bit apprehensive about the unknown.
Totally.
Right? If you haven't encountered a certain culture or people from a certain background, then it's kind of natural to be a little bit wary. But when that wariness turns into fear, that's where it becomes problematic.
It crosses the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, it also points out that sometimes these prejudices are just kind of baked into us through the media we consume.
Oh, yeah.
Or even
they do inherit it
through the way we're raised. Right.
Family, yeah.
Like if you grow up in a household where certain stereotypes are prevalent or certain prejudices are expressed, then, you kind of internalize those things. And it can be really hard. Yeah.
Unlearn them later.
And you might not even realize
exactly
that you've internalized them. Right.
Absolutely, yeah.
You might just think that's just... the way the world works.
Right. Just the water you swim in, right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's really insidious.
Exactly.
And I think that's where education is so important.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just about, filling our brains with facts and figures and stuff like that. It's about actually shaping how we see
it's about
the world and how we interact with other people.
For sure. Right. Yeah.
So let's get a little bit practical here, right?
Okay.
Because the source talks about this thing called culturally responsive teaching.
Right.
Which sounds great.
Fancy, right?
Yeah, it sounds fancy. It sounds good, but like, what does that actually look like in the classroom? Yeah. So imagine, for example, you're a teacher and you're teaching a history lesson on immigration, for example.
Okay.
Right. So instead of just, presenting the dates and the names and the facts and figures, you could actually have the students explore personal stories from immigrants of different backgrounds.
Oh, I like that.
Right. They could research their own family histories. You could bring in people from the community who are immigrants.
Right.
And share their stories.
Yeah.
And suddenly the history lesson becomes much more personal and much more relevant and much more multidimensional,
Yeah, it's not just dates and names and facts.
Exactly.
It's living, breathing
people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that.
And their experiences, right?
Yeah.
And then the other term
that the source material mentions is anti-bias education.
Right, and I feel like that's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
It does. But
I don't know if everyone really understands what it means.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like?
So anti-bias education is really about kind of actively challenging those harmful us versus them narratives, right? And giving students the tools to identify and dismantle stereotypes.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, instead of just, reading a story about, a particular culture, you could have the students analyze how that culture is portrayed in different books and movies and news articles.
So it's media literacy, too.
Exactly. It's about teaching them how to think critically about the information they're receiving.
Yeah. It's not just about...
It's not.
Learning about different cultures. It's about learning how to, critically examine information you're being given.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that.
And then the other piece that the source material mentions is the importance of conflict resolution.
Okay.
Because look, I mean, disagreements are inevitable, especially in diverse environments.
Yeah. That's gonna happen.
But the key is how do you turn those conflicts into opportunities
for learning
and growth?
Right.
So how do you create a space where
that's hard. That's
it is hard.
The hard part, right?
It is.
It's like it's easier to just avoid conflict,
absolutely,
than to actually lean into it and have these
fact.
Difficult conversations.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the source material is saying we need to do that.
They have to.
We have to.
Yeah.
We need to create those spaces where people can respectfully voice
their perspectives, even if those perspectives are different.
And it's not just on the teachers, right?
No, it's on all of us.
It's on all of us. Students, it's on the parents, it's on the whole community.
Absolutely, yeah.
Actually, create a culture that allows for that.
Exactly, a culture of respect.
Yeah.
A culture of understanding.
Yeah.
A culture of...
It takes a village, whatever, right?
For sure, it does. It takes a village.
So the source material kind of leaves us with this challenge, right? Which is it asks this question. How can we empower students and teachers to challenge xenophobia? And I feel like that's where the rubber meets the road, right?
It is.
It's okay, we've talked about the problem, we've talked about some solutions, but how do we actually get people to take action?
Right.
What does that actually look like?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with awareness, right?
We need to help people recognize xenophobia when they see it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a blatant act of discrimination or a subtle microaggression.
Yeah.
But then awareness isn't enough, right? We also have to equip people with the skills and the confidence to speak up against injustice, to advocate for inclusive policies, to create welcoming environments.
Yeah. So I guess the question is for you listening out there, right?
Yeah.
What's one thing that you can do today to actually make a difference in your little corner of the world?
Yeah, and it could be something small, right? It could be making a conscious effort to learn about a culture that's different from your own.
Yeah.
It could be
read a book,
having a difficult conversation,
documentary,
with a friend or a family member who's expressed a biased viewpoint.
Right.
Or it could be, supporting an organization that promotes intercultural understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or advocating for policies that welcome immigrants and refugees. Like there's
so many things that people can do.
So many things, big and small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, to kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
I think what we've learned is that xenophobia is a real thing.
It is.
It has deep roots in our society and in our history.
For sure.
But it's not inevitable.
Absolutely not.
We don't have to just accept it as the way things are.
Right. Something we can address.
We can understand it. We can come up with solutions.
Yeah.
We can empower people to take action.
Absolutely.
And I think, we've talked about some of those solutions, like culturally responsive teaching, anti-bias education, all of that stuff is really important.
Sure.
But I think you had one other kind of provocative thought.
Yeah, we've been talking about, countering xenophobia, which is crucial, right? But I wonder if we could take it a step further and actively cultivate xenophilia.
Whoa, xenophilia, what is
Right, like a love and appreciation for different cultures.
So instead of just
tolerating or accepting, it's how can we actively
embrace it,
celebrate it?
Yeah, I like that.
I
like that a lot. So what would that look like? How would people actually do that?
I think it could be as simple as, trying a new cuisine.
Okay.
Learning a few phrases in another language. Traveling to a new place with an open mind and heart.
Yeah.
I think it's about recognizing that our differences make us stronger, not weaker.
Yeah. That's also, I love that. That's a great challenge, I think.
Yeah.
For people to kind of take away from this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess, as you're going about your day to day, think about, how you can maybe turn curiosity into understanding, right?
Yeah.
Turn fear into connection and turn difference into a source of strength.
Absolutely.
Because I think we all have a role to play.
We do.
In building a more
we all do
inclusive and welcoming world.
For sure.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
This was great. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
And we'll see everybody next time.
See you later.
On The Deep Dive.
Bye.